Testing, can we test? We know we're getting it?
Yeah.
Okay, rock on.
Okay, we're ready.
We're ready.
Hi, I'm Evan from evanflies.com, and I'm at the very cool Pacific Coast Dream Machines, where I get to interview Vito Unlimited race team owner Bill Tiger Destefani, my friend Vito 2009 Unlimited winner Steve here, and crew chief LD Hughes. Tiger, how and when did you get into flying?
Well, we have to go back a few years. It was about 1966 when I first started flying, and really what happened was I heard a radio ad on the radio that advertised a $5 flight for 1 hour, like in a little introduction flight. And so I went out to the airport and did it, and was really already hooked on flying, but that kind of did it for me. So from there on, I just started flying.
All right. How do you get interested in air racing then?
Well, let's see, in about 1977, I bought my first Mustang. And then we got it flying in about 1978. I didn't have much time in it, but a good friend of mine, Ron Heavley, who's a crop duster down in Bakersfield, he had owned a couple Mustangs, and he had raced his T6 up at Reno. So I called him up and I said, hey, you want to take that Mustang up to Reno? So he said, yeah. So we went. That was 1980. And then from there on, I just got hooked on the racing and the competition and been going ever since.
Did that Mustang was Strega?
No, that Mustang was Destefani.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from back when. And no, I didn't have Strega yet, but I did have I had the Dago Red, which wasn't put together. It was out at the hangar there on the outside of one of the hangars. And so, let's see, it was 1980. We didn't do bad. I think we ended up, in those days, we raced in the silver race. We won that race. And in those days, the winner of the silver race was an alternate for the gold in case they didn't launch all the gold airplanes. Well, my good friend Danny Martin's battery blew up and he couldn't get launched, so we took his slot and we ended up with, I think, a 5th in the gold race. And in those days also, you got to keep the prize money from the silver race, and then we got 4th prize money for the gold race, so we actually did pretty good. It wasn't a lot of money, but in those days it kind of was. So that was 1980, and then in 81 we modified Strega some. We put clip wings on it, changed the canopy a little bit, blew actually a different bubble for it, and we kind of thought we were going to do really well. When we were coming down the chute, the highly modified Mustangs just left us in the dirt. So that was kind of it.
Yeah.
So then I built up the Dago Red in early part of 82. And we went up there and I flew the Destefani and heavily flew the Dago, and we won that race pretty easy, really. And then I sold the airplane the next day because I had Strega coming out of Australia, which was in a kind of a dilapidated museum. And that airplane was kind of going back to the earth. But anyway, we got it and then tore it completely down and rebuilt it for pretty much what you see today. Of course, we've modified a lot since then, but that's how that airplane came along.
Cool. So it wasn't a race plane before you got it?
No, it was not. No, it got shipped from the U.S. over to Australia, and it was right at the latter part of the war, and I think it only had about 50 or so hours on it. And the war ended, it never saw any combat, but over the years it had just, pretty well dilapidated, so, it needed a complete rebuild, but it wasn't a racer.
So, can you tell me about the 1988 race when your engine lost oil pressure and you had to land really fast?
Yeah, 1988, it was qualifying. We blew that thing up. I mean, it blew up bad. It was oil, it was fire, it was coolant. It blew a couple of the rods out of that thing, and of course, requires a mayday without a doubt. And that was really probably the first real mayday I had. And I thought I was, I didn't know it had blown those rods out of it. Everything, it was shaking really bad, as I recall, and a lot of coolant and oil. So I'm up there lollygagging, and I've turned onto headed down towards 1.4, and then once the oil left all the engine, then the propeller went flat, and so the drag then was really, it was like having full flaps down, just with the propeller laying flat. So luckily I made it, just barely made it, but I learned a lot on that May Day, and we didn't get qualified for that race. So that's what happened in 1988.
Was it tough to start getting
Well, it really wasn't. I had been looking for another pilot for quite a while. I kind of wanted to step out of it, and then Steve came along on our crew early on, maybe 5 or 6 years, whatever it was, before he actually started flying airplanes. And I could see he had a lot of potential. So a couple years ago, we started working with him and started flying the airplane. It evolved to where it is today, and where he got it together and does a remarkable job. So that's what happened.
Definitely. How did you feel when Steve took the gold in 2009?
Well, it was a thrilling moment, to watch the airplane win. It's won before, but I was always in it, so I never really got to see that happen. So it was just great, everything worked well. He did a marvelous job, and we thrashed them boys like a set cow.
Yeah. All right. So can you pass the microphone to LD?
I'm passing.
All right. LD, what's it like being a crew chief? Must be really hard. Do you guys have anything planned for the 2010 race to make Strega faster that you can tell me about? Or will you leave it alone since it's so fast and reliable already?
What's it like to be the crew chief on Strega? It's actually an honor. I've been working at it for 25 years. It can be the most miserable thing, the most rewarding thing at the same time. Of course, when it wins, it's great. Being the crew chief on the airplane, though, for me, it's a rewarding experience because it's not just about the flying in the airplane. We have a very close-knit group of guys. We're all really good friends, and we really enjoy working on the airplane. It's never stopping. It can be a tough job at times. There's a lot of pressure sometimes, but on the other hand, it's so rewarding when the airplane does well. Yeah, for instance, flying up here yesterday and just watching it fly along beside us just makes you proud. So there's nothing else I'd rather be on the team other than crew chief, really. As far as the 10 season goes, we're going to put a new cowling on the airplane. We're not going to change the shape of it, but we do want to seal it up and just make it nicer. And really, that's kind of the only thing on the list for this year. And we're just going to do a lot of maintenance and make sure the airplane's safe and run hard.
Yep. Alright, so all of you, do you guys have a favorite Reno racing story that you can share with me? Besides winning last year, which was really cool.
Racing story?
Yeah, there's a million of those. Gosh, I don't know. In 08, we'd been on a 10-year bad cycle. And after all the heartache and hard times and broken engines, that was probably the most rewarding year for me. It was my first win as a crew chief. And Tigers pilot. There's a lot of history with me and Tiger, so I would say that probably out of all my racing experiences, that one was probably going to be the most special. It was also a real honor to give Steve a chance to fly in the airplane. He did us real proud, flew well, and backed up another race season with a win, which for us, that's what we do. So both of those years are very special for different reasons.
Well,
you know what you didn't do? You didn't have a question for Steve.
right, yeah,
Poor
that's
Steve's
Steve's
just standing right there.
He's going to get to it.
Go ahead. All right, now you get to wing it. Make something
Okay.
up.
Oh, wing it.
Yeah.
That's my best shot. Wing it.
Steve, how did you feel after you won at Reno last year? Felt good, didn't it?
Yeah, it felt good. It was, yeah, to say the least. It felt great to win at Reno. The feeling never really sunk in.
Felt good.
It was kind of surreal. It stayed like that for a while. It didn't sink in. Working with the airplane, and going back and watching video of that, I still think, oh, there's Tiger flying the airplane. And, oh, wait a minute, that's not Tiger, that's me. It hasn't really sunk in. But obviously, when the airplane runs great and the crew's happy, there's not a feeling that's better than that.
Right. So, anything else you'd like to mention?
Go out there again. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.